On this edition of the Table of Content, we look back at one of We Are One Body Audio Theater's recordings of Aesop's The Lion and the Mouse. We'll talk about what's going on inside the story and open it up a little bit more. Stay tuned, that's coming up next, right here on the Table of Content. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Table of Content. I am Albert Saenz.
And I'm Michael Steele.
And we together will be looking at stories that We Are One Body Audio Theater has recorded and trying to look a little bit deeper into those stories. So, Michael, glad to be with you today.
Yes, it's great to be with you, Albert, as well.
So today we're going to look into a very short story, but I would say myself, a fairly impactful story if you really look at it from a certain angle. We're going to be looking at Aesop's The Lion and the Mouse. Is this a story that you're familiar with from, when you were a kid?
Oh, absolutely. The Lion and the Mouse, well, in general, Aesop's tales, Aesop's fables, are timeless classics. And I was just asking myself that question as I was, refamiliarizing myself with the story. Like, what makes an Aesop fable timeless? What is it about them? So,
And did you find the answer?
Not really. I'm still kind of, there's layers upon layers there, but I guess one of them is that they're a reflection of an experience, a human experience, and there's a point to them. There's a lesson to be learned that Aesop somehow took from reality and wove it into a story. And that's probably the real brilliance of Aesop, is that these experiences or these points, these lessons, are taken from reality and then put into a fictional setting for us to enjoy, but then also come away thinking, that makes sense.
Okay, so let me ask this question, because you said something that was sticking out in my head, and I want to get to the story, but let me ask you this question, because you were talking about how Aesop took a human experience, turned it into a sort of fictional story, and we take something away from that. Is it the case that in life, with any human experience, that we should try to learn from that experience, regardless of what it is? Like, oh, guess what? My experience today, I hiked a mountain. My human experience today, I went to work. My human experience, I did this, I did that. Should we be trying to take something away from every human experience?
Wow, that's a great question. And that just...
It wasn't, I mean, it's good. I'm glad you think it's a great question. I just want to know whether you think that we should or whether we shouldn't. I mean, because that sort of, dictates whether you're like, well, Aesop, great, but I don't take things away from my experiences, whatever, Aesop. So I'm just wondering what you think.
Right. Well, you brought to light sort of the subjective world of our interiority. We could go through life, if you wanted to, sort of, having our experiences, but then not really allowing them to impact us at a deeper level. It's just sort of having them roll off us like water off of a duck's back. But I would say, yeah, in as much as we have the ability to reflect on our experiences and glean lessons from them, I would say we can do that. Not that we do that consciously at every moment. It's not like I look at, my grocery list and think like, oh, what
Right.
life lesson can I hear? Can I learn from this? But
I need more bread and milk. This is
right,
deep.
right, exactly. What is hunger?
Right.
But in as much as we have the ability to, well, first of all, experience reality, but then also take a half step back and think about what our takeaway is from that that experience, I would say that there's a value to that. And I guess it's probably the road to wisdom, as well as Socrates said that the road to wisdom begins with wonder. So when we wonder about things, that's when we start, not taking life for granted.
Okay, well, you went all the way into the great philosopher there. I wasn't sure if we were actually going to go there, but okay. So, yes.
From Aesop to Socrates in one easy
right.
step.
So let's bring it back before we get too far off here and start talking about, Plato and the Republic and, what happens inside of a cave. You know, so uh in this experience of this Aesop's tale, The Lion and the Mouse, we have a small little mouse happens to disturb a lion. The lion, is going to eat the mouse. The mouse begs for mercy and says, let me go. I can help you someday. The lion's kind of amused and says, yeah, okay, well, that was amusing. Just because it was so amusing, go ahead. Go on your way. The lion gets himself in a predicament. The mouse comes and saves the lion. And, this lesson of like, well, the mouse returned the favor, so no good deed goes wasted. But also I think, I can't help but think, that the littlest person can do the greatest thing given the opportunity. So I was kind of taking a couple of things away from here. But let's stick with the general story here, right? So we've got the lion, the mouse. The mouse is allowed its freedom. The mouse comes back and saves the lion. What's the overarching experience lesson that we should take away from this particular Aesop story?
Right, that's a great question. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the same thing, that in this story, and maybe you can agree with this, but we've all been in the role of the mouse, and we've also have been in the role of the lion. And the idea is, in terms of the mouse, we've all been in a tight circumstance where we've received the kindness and benevolence and mercy of someone else who had nothing to gain by it, but they just decided to be kind. I'm thinking myself about a year or two ago in traffic court.
Here we go.
But anyways, I received kindness. I was let go. You know, but then in terms of the lion had nothing to gain by showing kindness to the mouse, apparently at that particular moment from the lion's point of view, and yet he let the mouse go. So again, and the like you were saying, the moral of the story is kindness is never wasted, or what goes around comes around, or a kind deed never goes without its reward. And I think it's just a reflection on the consequences of doing a good action when we apparently have nothing to gain from it, and as well nothing to lose, but then it comes back and we're somehow rewarded by that act of kindness.
I want to unpack kind of a few things that you were talking about there, but I want to go back to you focused in on the lion. He was merciful, had nothing to gain at that moment, but went ahead and let the mouse go, and of course later is repaid. I feel that in our lives, because you said, you said it, sometimes we're the mouse, sometimes we're the lion. And I think sometimes in those moments as a lion, it is really hard for us to do something when we cannot immediately see the sort of, well, what do I get out of this? What am
Yeah.
I going to get back? What is my reward? How do I get paid? Right now you show me nothing and you expect me to do something for you, for someone else, and I can't see it. And I'm wondering, in this sort of world that we live in, how often people respond sort of negatively to that, right? So the
Mm,
lion, out of sheer sort of amusement that the mouse would be so bold as to say that it could help the lion at some point, says, okay, go ahead. But in our own lives, I'm not sure if it's kind of out of amusement. I think it's either, hey, I'm either going to get something out of this or forget it. So,
mhm,
how many times do we sort of have the negative response when we have this opportunity as the lion to do something good, to be merciful, to help someone out, but we're saying, "Well, I'm not gonna get anything out of this, so no."
mm, mhm. Right. Fortunately, more often than not, especially in our sort of transactional workaday world, uh, yeah, that dynamic is very much felt in relationships, and I feel that that's really what kindness, in its essence, or maybe one of the facets of kindness, is the fact that there's a good deed done without any gain to be made, apparent gain to be made.
Mhm.
You know, and yeah, I feel like if we could, as a society, as a culture, harness that, the world would be a better place. But unfortunately, more often than not, it's just, I feel like we all become sort of bean counters. Well, I did this for you, so you need to do this, that, and that, for me, and then that's a real impoverishment of human interaction.
So, you're saying there's more to gain in the human relationship at the human level when we don't just sort of, lower it to the level of, "I give, you give back."
Absolutely. Yeah. If you think about any dynamic of relationship, it's really the person who loves the least who determines the parameters of the relationship, who limits the relationship. So even I'm thinking of Mother Teresa as well. She said, give without, or give until it hurts, right? And that's when you're truly loving. But you know,
But okay, let me play the other side, but
mm,
why? Why should I give until it hurts? Like, I don't wanna hurt, I don't wanna have pain, I don't wanna suffer. What what do I get from giving so much that I feel more like I'm losing than gaining?
right. Yeah, that's the paradox of that, um, dying to self in order to live. There's an objective dynamic at play there where there's a letting go of self in order to embrace a larger reality. And in as much as we can embrace that dynamic, we begin to live an objectively larger existence, or objectively fuller existence. You know, yeah. But like, what is the motivation? Yeah, and that, I think that harkens back to sort of the mystery of what love is all about. I'm thinking about the relationship that parents have with their children. Children take a lot from parents, but they
Yes,
give
they do.
right. Yeah, we're 2 months into our welcoming our third child into the family, but there's so much joy in return. And little baby boy is, he has a lot of needs and is constantly pulling us out of ourselves at the moment, and it's all give, give, give on our part. But
Mhm.
just by his presence, though, he's filling our lives with his presence, with his joy. Now, I'm not sure if that's where Aesop really meant to take this, but they got they. I guess the point is, a kindness done will always make the world a fuller place, a better place.
Of course, of course. I mean, I've mentioned this to people before, probably talking, wanting the world to be a better place, as you say. But I
Yeah.
imagine a world where everyone does one kind act a day. How different would the world be? Whether they get something back, whether they don't, whether maybe their life is askew, whether maybe they're not the most moral person, whatever they are, if they did a legitimately kind act once a day,
Yeah.
7 billion kind acts once a
Yeah.
day, what would the world look like? If we could all just have just enough mercy, just enough of that kindness, enough of something in our heart says, I'm going to do one kind act today, small, big, somewhere in the middle. What would the world look like? And I am almost 100% certain that the world would just be better.
Right. Right. And I was just thinking about that's the difference between sort of like an ancient sort of pagan worldview, if you will, and sort of the Christian worldview. The ancient pagan worldview, Aesop says, do kindness because it's going to come back around and you're going to be rewarded, right? The world be a better place. But I think the Christian worldview is do kindness because that person is worthy of kindness.
Mhm.
Whether or not they're acting like they're worthy of kindness. There's that saying that we love others not because they are necessarily acting like they deserve it, but because it's the right thing to do.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. And going back to your example of Mother Teresa, I believe that she also spent many years where she kind of felt like a spiritual dryness. She felt kind of a separation almost
Mm,
from God, who, I mean, that's what drove her to be Mother Teresa. It wasn't sort of, completely of her own, doing. It was because she wanted to serve God. She decides to serve the poorest of the poor, the sickest of the sick, you know, the
mm,
the, the people on the streets of Calcutta. But she continues to serve till the end of her days. But in the midst of there, she has this sort of, dry spell, if you will, but
yeah.
she doesn't lose focus of doing what she knows is supposed to be done because it's the right thing to do. And I
Yeah.
think for a lot of people, it would be hard, especially in the Christian world, to be like, okay, I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to serve God. I'm going to follow the commandments. I'm going to love my neighbor. I'm going to do everything that Jesus says to do. And then you're like, gosh, I don't feel Jesus in my life. I don't feel God in my life.
Right.
What am I doing this for? And
Yeah.
to overcome that and then say, I am going to do this because I know it is right. And I know in my heart that I'm doing something good. So whether I'm feeling the presence of Christ, whether I'm feeling something warm and tingly in my heart, I'm going to
Hmm.
do this because it's the right thing to do.
Right. Right. I was just thinking a few years ago, uh, I just had this inspiration as I was going through the drive-through at one of these fast food places, and I just said, I'll pay for the person behind me. And they're like, well, are you sure they're ordering all? And it's like, yeah, I'll just pay for it. And like you were saying, I felt, look at me. It felt good to do it. It was an act of kindness. It felt good to do it. But then I sort of, made myself a saint out of it, in my own
Right,
mind.
right.
But there's a difference between sort of a spontaneous little, here's pass it forward type of thing, and someone who is doing it day in, day out, 24/7, like Mother Teresa, who's just giving herself, consistently, whether there's an emotional reward or not.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Mm-hmm.
just doing it because she really saw Jesus Christ in other people, and I feel like that, and ultimately that kindness does come back, but not, the Christian worldview is it's not experienced in this world.
Sure, sure.
You know.
Well, before we run out of time, I want to make sure that we take a little bit of just at least a few minutes to actually talk about the mouse's view. We got on the lion's side and kind of
Mm,
opened that up. Let's take just a few minutes here to talk about the mouse. So we have the mouse, tiny, seems like the mouse can't do a lot. The mouse encounters the lion, of course, and then says, "Please, please, let me go." And the mouse comes back and he helps the lion. And I was thinking, all right, where in our lives do we have that sort of opportunity, because I think
Mm.
sometimes as society in the world, we're the lion more than the mouse a lot of times. We want to,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm the lion,
Hmm.
don't mess with me. I'm the lion,
Hmm.
I have power, or at least we want to be the lion.
Hmm.
So where in our lives are we more mouse-like, and we have those moments where we're like, please, just let me go,
Yeah.
and I was trying to think, I was like, I couldn't think of something off the top of my head. Can you think of something where we're like a mouse?
Yeah. It is. It's that idea of being at the mercy of someone else's decision, being the recipient of their kindness, not necessarily because you deserve it, but just because they were in either a good mood or whatever. And then being filled so much with gratitude that you actually want to do a kindness in return.
So the
And
so
that
the whole pay it forward concept, kind of.
right, right. Well, a little bit. I think the pay it forward concept would be more the lion's point of view, because he's paying it forward. He doesn't know it yet, but he's paying it forward, and it
Okay,
comes back to help him because he spares the life of the mouse.
sure.
But oh, I get it. Yeah, being the recipient of that act of kindness and saying, have someone saying, pay it forward. You know, I'm the image comes to mind of Saving Private Ryan, that scene, where at the very end, where the actor, the person that Tom Hanks is playing, is dying, and they actually save, Private Ryan, and he whispers into his ear, "Earn it, earn it," and that drastically changes, the Private Ryan's life. And there's that very moving scene at the end where he's asking his family, am I a good man? In
Yeah,
some in
yeah.
so many ways of saying, like, have I been worthy of this, of his ultimate sacrifice? Um, so it's that dynamic, but it's hard. I was even thinking, going back to being in traffic court, I received mercy, I was let go, but there's really no way I can repay directly, the judge who let me go, you know,
Sure.
for whatever, other than, continuing to do my civil duty as a, as a good citizen, and keeping my car updated with registration and stuff.
But you know what? That's the case a lot of times, isn't it? Like, someone pays us a kindness, and there is no way for us to pay it back directly.
Mm,
And all we can do is be grateful and express extreme gratitude for whatever it was, the kindness that was paid to us. And let me be clear before I make this next statement. I'm not advocating for myself. I'm not putting myself up on some sort of pedestal. I'm not blowing my own horn. I'm just trying to make an example here. I have stopped and I have given food at times to homeless people that I have encountered.
mm,
And I know there's no way that they can pay me back. I don't
right.
give them a bill when I give them the food and say, I'll send you an invoice,
Mm,
you know, and, obviously I'm not being a lion in the sort of violent sense of the word, but I guess I am sort of the lion in that position from sort of a power standpoint, and they're very much the mouse.
mm,
They're at the will of the people that surround them, that walk by them. We're all kind of the lions, right? Whether we drive by them on a street corner or walk by them on a sidewalk, and there's no way. There's no way that they could repay us back directly. So
right.
I think a lot of times that's sort of the position we find ourselves in when someone pays us in a in a way that's so big, and like, I I can't pay that back. And a lot of times that person, that lion, if you will, doesn't expect payment back. It
Mm,
was
hmm.
just a sheer act of kindness, and they're not looking for payment. They may not even be looking for a thank you. They just did it because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And in the lion in the story, the lion probably really had no thought that the mouse was going to actually come back. Like I said, he was amused. It's like,
Right.
okay, yeah, all right, go ahead, little mouse. We'll see what you can do. It wasn't like, yes, of course. What was I thinking? I was out of my lion head,
Yeah.
trying to kill a mouse when I know you could do good for me. Yeah, but he just let him go and said, yeah, okay, that was cute. Go on your way,
Yep.
and be a better mouse. But the mouse
Mm.
does come back. So, I think we can go about it in a lot of different ways. We can
Mhm.
say, I don't expect anything back. I know you can't pay me back, but I'm going to do this because it's just the right thing to do.
Mm. Right. And as we were talking about that, I thought that sometimes the greater act of charity is receiving the charity of others with
Yeah.
kindness and
Yeah.
graciously, and not not making them feel bad or whatever, for doing that, but just a simple and honest and upfront thank you.
Yep, yep, and that does a world of good. Someone wanted to buy me my first set of glasses because they were so concerned about me, and they did, and I was
Wow.
so adamant that they shouldn't have done it. Like, I must have, like, just sort of kept saying for half the day, like, a million times saying, "You really shouldn't have done it. You really shouldn't have done it." And
Yeah.
they actually were, I think that I didn't realize what I was doing, and by the end of it, I think that I really hurt them. And I
Yeah.
realized slowly after that moment that sometimes people just want to do things for you because they care about you. And if I had just said thank you, if I hadn't, lavished them in words of gratitude, that would have been fine. If I had just said thank you, because this person was concerned about my eyesight and bought me my first set of glasses, and I just fought against it. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, I sort of ruined their opportunity for this kind act. So you nailed it exactly when you said that a lot of times we don't know how to be grateful, but we should just be simply grateful and say thank you, accept it, and know that this person is trying to do something kind.
Right. We're giving them the opportunity to show an act of kindness. Yeah.
Well, we've got to wrap up here, but it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we look at the Lion and the Mouse by Aesop, and there really is a lot going on here, and we're going to have probably some more Aesop's fables and stories to kind of open up along the way, but you know, let's all hopefully take away from, this conversation that, we're all kind of lions at times and we're all kind of mice, probably maybe even more. But on either side that there's an opportunity to learn and to have, an experience to have an opportunity in the midst of that experience to do something good, some act of charity, some act of kindness, and that ultimately, that decision does lie with us, and however we decide to go about it.
Mhm. Right. Aesop's fables, they're deceptively simple and but there's a depth there. There's that touches our human experience. So great. I'm looking forward to talking about more fables in the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been joining myself and Michael along this journey as we've looked at Aesop the Lion and the Mouse. If you want to hear our recording of it, go to our website, We Are One Body Audio Theater, and look under Door to Door Storytellers and scroll down the playlist, and you can take a listen to it, or I'm sure you could find this online to read yourself. But we're so glad that you joined us for this episode. We hope you will tune in again to the table of content. Until then, be good, stay safe, peace.